BitB gathered $237 million in its very first day on the market. For reference, that puts it in the top 1% of all ETF launches of all time.
Mm.
And that was just one of 10 Bitcoin ETFs that launched. I think collectively, this is a record for the industry. What that shows is a few things. It shows that there is demand to access Bitcoin in an ETF wrapper. It shows that these products have a future. And I think it hints that they're going to eventually gather billions and billions of dollars of assets.
This content is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that I've been using since 2018. Uphold has all the top cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and all the altcoins. In fact, they have 260 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform. You can also trade precious metals, stable coins, and 37 fiat currencies. In addition, they are available in over 150 countries. And this platform is fully reserved. They do audits, so you can trust that your funds are safe, no commingling, no lending out your funds. If you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Matt Hougan, who's the CIO at Bitwise Asset Management. Matt, great to have you on.
Oh, it's so exciting to be back. Thanks for having me. Really excited for the conversation.
So Matt, we've been talking for years. We've, of course, talked about Bitwise's different crypto products and, of course, the application process leading up to the Bitcoin Spot ETF. We had a historic week last week, of course, where these ETFs were approved and launched. Bitwise, being one of the leaders, having the lowest fees. I would love to get your initial thoughts. How are you feeling? How is the team feeling at Bitwise having this ETF go live?
Historic is the right word. 10 years in the making and 5 years for Bitwise working on spot Bitcoin ETFs. So we feel extremely excited, extremely grateful, a little bit tired because it was a lot of work, but the response has been overwhelming. It's been great to see hundreds of millions of dollars flow into RT-ETF, and we're excited for what the future holds. It's going to be a fun year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the ad you guys put out. It was great. So I have to ask, how did you get the actor from the Dos Equis commercials, the most interesting man in the world, to participate?
Oh man, that was incredible. We knew we needed to do something to level up our brand. And so we gathered input from all the employees at Bitwise of things we could do. We had crazy ideas, but we had this idea. I wonder if we can get the most interesting man in the world, to say, what's interesting is Bitcoin. And it went from idea to filming in a month.
Wow.
And at every stage, it seemed like it would be impossible. Like, could we still track him down? Would he still look like the most interesting man in the world? Would he be willing to do it? Could we make the schedule work? Could we find a production company? Can we actually do it from a compliance perspective? And it just got more and more exciting until we actually filmed it, which was amazing. Even that was nerve-wracking. I woke up that day and I couldn't talk. I had a cold, and I was like, "Oh no!" Of all
Oh, no.
things. But it ended up working out, and the response was amazing. We've got millions of views. It's been really great. What a highlight of my year for sure.
Yeah, I love it. It was so well done. I love the cufflings, the little details, and of course, kind of the blooper reel with you. It's just great. Great job. I have to ask, there's going to be a marketing blitz from
Mhm.
you and the other ETF issuers. Are you planning a Super Bowl ad or anything like that?
I love that idea. I don't know if we're quite the size to do a Super Bowl ad, but we'll see how flows go. I think it's possible you'll see some from the crypto industry. There is going to be an intense marketing war. The reason for that is this is an opportunity measured in the tens of billions of dollars, in my view.
Hmm.
And so when you have that kind of addressable market for these ETFs, you're going to see people fighting for their share. Bitwise hopes to get our share as well. I don't know if that means a Super Bowl ad, but you can expect us to be live in the market for sure.
So Matt, so far, based on what Bloomberg has been reporting, I believe $10 billion in trading volume for all ETFs. What are your thoughts? How do you feel the launch and the trading has been going so far?
It's been going incredibly well. BitB gathered $237 million in its very first day on the market. For reference, that puts it in the top 1% of all ETF launches of all time.
Hmm.
And that was just one of 10 Bitcoin ETFs that launched. I think collectively, this is a record for the industry. What that shows is a few things. It shows that there is demand to access Bitcoin in an ETF wrapper. It shows that these products have a future. And I think it hints that they're going to eventually gather billions and billions of dollars of assets, which will be great for the Bitcoin ecosystem. So I'd say it's a historic launch. We're very pleased, and we're really excited about what's coming in the next few months and quarters and years.
Now, how was Bitwise able to have the lowest fees? Tell us a bit about that and how it all works. Because, from an outside perspective, I'm like, are you going to be able to, be profitable? And maybe
Yeah.
you are, but explain the fee structure.
One of the beautiful things about being at Bitwise is over the last 7 years, we built a large and sustainable business managing crypto assets, right? Even before the launch, we managed over $1 billion in assets for tens of thousands of investors. And what that means is that most of the infrastructure for running a crypto asset manager already existed. We already had a sales team. We already had a research team. We already had a compliance department. We already had a trading team. We already had custody relationships. So the incremental cost of adding on another fund isn't zero, but it's not nearly as big as if you're new to crypto and launching your first fund.
Sure.
And that allowed us to price it very aggressively.
Hmm.
We think it'll be a great business for us. Again, we think these funds have the potential to gather 10, 20, $50 billion in assets over time.
Mhm.
At $10 billion, even 20 basis points is $20 million. That's a great business. So it's not our only business. We have a broader crypto fund suite, but it is a great business. And I think that crypto firmament was what allowed us to be, so aggressive on price.
Yeah, and that absolutely makes sense. And I appreciate that perspective that you guys have been doing this for a while. You already have the infrastructure. So it's just plugging it into your existing business process. So that absolutely makes sense.
That's right.
Now, tell us about your plan to educate RIAs and wealth managers. You probably can't tell us everything, but as much as you can, what is the plan for 2024 to get more of these folks to understand Bitcoin and to offer it to their clients?
Yeah, we tend to be aggressive about it. I'll tell you an incredible fact. We had 20,000 meetings last year
Wow.
with financial professionals talking about crypto. Not all of that converted into fund flows, in part because many of them couldn't access crypto because there wasn't a spot ETF. We're
Hmm.
going to have 20,000 plus conversations this year as well. And now those are with people who can buy it in the same way that they buy Apple stock,
Hmm.
right? With the proverbial push of a button. So we're really excited about that. Beyond that, significant marketing, significant media, significant podcasts like this one, where we get to talk to people about the value both of Bitcoin and of a regulated low-cost wrapper that lets you access it like BITB. But I think that's one way to think of the scale. Think of 20,000 conversations over the course of a year. And then remember that Bitwise isn't the only firm doing this. There are now 10 firms doing this. That's a lot of conversations, a lot of people learning about Bitcoin, learning about crypto, and I think many people allocating.
Matt, do you think we've hit the upper echelon of what Bitcoin and crypto can be from a psychological standpoint? Not the adoption will come over time, the inflows and so forth, but the breaking down of that psychological barrier, maybe for like boomers and different folks who are like, I don't know about this Bitcoin stuff. Um, and now they can see it in their retirement account or whichever investment vehicle that, hey, I can invest in this. I can go with Bitwise or whoever else.
Yeah, there's a Winston Churchill quote that really appeals to me on this, which is, it's not the beginning of the end, but it may be the end of the beginning.
Hmm.
And I think that's where we are. I think if you think about Bitcoin going from idea to something worth a penny to something worth $43,000, 42,633 to use your clock, um, that's a remarkable journey. And it's had to penetrate a lot of minds. It's had to break through a lot of calluses. It's had to overcome a lot of objections. It's not like everyone woke up on the day that the Bitcoin ETF launched and accepted that it's now part of the financial firmament, but it does start that journey, right? Bitcoin is no longer at the kiddie table. It's
Mm.
moved to the adult table in a sense. I don't mean that pejoratively. Bitcoin, the soul of Bitcoin is self-sovereignty and self-ownership. I mean that from a financial industry perspective. Until there was an ETF, you couldn't have Bitcoin conversations alongside stocks and bonds and gold and real estate easily, and now you can. So I do think it's made a progression within TradFi to a new level, and it will grow from there.
Now, Matt, not everyone is a fan of the Bitcoin spot ETFs.
Yeah.
The folks at Vanguard and Merrill, I don't know what's going on over there, but they're taking the stance. I don't know if it's posturing or what's happening. We're not going to list it. In fact, we're going to delist the futures ETFs as well. What do you think is going on over there?
It's crazy. It's crazy to me. These are people who have let people invested 3x leverage Jim Cramer ETFs. And suddenly the best performing asset in the world over the last 1, 3, 5, and 10 years is something that you can't touch. Look, often when you make massive societal change, there's a sort of last minute pushback against that change. And I think that's what we're seeing here. They will come on board eventually.
Yeah.
The ETF approval is part of the normalization of Bitcoin. Um, I don't think those are sound arguments, and I think they will come around eventually. Again, this is sort of day one of the Bitcoin ETF era. By year one or year two, it'll be accepted as normal course of business. It's sad for me to see. It's a little bit shocking, but it too shall pass. It will just take a little while.
Look, I tweeted out and I've been saying on the podcast, they could be having their blockbuster moment. I know, this is not entirely, maybe the root of it, but it's just maybe the mindset that, hey, we're not forward looking, we're not adapting to new technology and new things, kind of what Blockbuster did, and Netflix stole their lunch.
Uh,
Um,
I love that. It's exactly right. It's a little paternalistic as well, right? People are smart. Let them make their own choices and do their own research, make their own decisions.
Yeah, and then surprisingly, they're doing this in a social media area where we're seeing trends of boycott, Vanguard. People are closing their accounts, moving their funds. So we'll see what when the dust settles. If they still have this stance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should add, Vanguard's a firm I admire deeply. It's worth noting when they launched, the traditional fund industry labeled them as anti-American and tried to get index funds banned. So sort of their actual corporate legacy is one of a revolution for the people. And yeah, it's a little bit surprising that they're where they are on Bitcoin today, but I do suspect it'll change over time.
So Matt, I know we're still early. The ETFs just launched last week, but are you getting more interest from institutional investors because of not only your ETF but other players issuing ETFs? Have you been getting more interest and demand?
Yeah, absolutely significantly more interest. I think a lot of the day one flows is people rotating from higher cost products to lower cost products, particularly if they own Bitcoin in a retirement account or some other fashion. Some is people who have been interested in Bitcoin for a long time, finally having easy access. The bigger flows will come from this interest. And the way that interest comes into Bitwise is not by state pensions or large institutions mashing the buy key and buying a million shares. It comes in the way of phone calls and can we set up to have a conversation? And we've had a large number of those phone calls come in, and my schedule is full of those conversations in the coming weeks. So Yes, there is real demand to learn. People are considering it, and I think that will eventually translate into flows for these products over time.
Mm. Matt, now there is, and I have this thought in my mind as well. Like, I'm an early adopter. I bought Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. I self-custody. I see the ETFs as a great vehicle to allow like my parents and the older generation and so forth to get access to Bitcoin. But then I think, are we losing some of this incredible great benefits of Bitcoin, right? Where you can be your own bank. And I'm struggling with that, to be
Hmm.
quite frank. What are your thoughts about that?
I appreciate the struggle. I appreciate the irony of wrapping self-sovereign Bitcoin in a financial instrument wrapper. But the beautiful thing is they're actually self-reinforcing. And I can give you a dusty analog example of this, if that's okay. Before Bitcoin existed, gold was the item that you used to get outside of the fiat system. And when the gold ETF launched in 2004, people worried about this financialized gold competing with the ability to hold gold bars and coins directly.
Hmm.
But a funny thing happened, which is in the 5 years after the gold ETF launched, the volume of purchases of gold bars and coins grew 5x.
Hmm.
And the reason it grew 5x is while the ETF competed at some level, some people chose the ETF who would have bought gold directly. The ETF brought so many more people into the ecosystem. So
True.
that's what we're going to see in crypto. We're going to see, yes, some people buy the ETF who would have bought a ledger and held their Bitcoin directly. But more than that, we're going to see, I think, an overwhelming growth in the Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem that will more than overwhelm that. Look, if you ultimately think Bitcoin is going to be an alternative currency rail and a monetary instrument that's on par with the largest fiat ecosystems in the world. If that's your vision of where we're going, and I support that vision, you weren't going to get there without an ETF. It's
It's
just
true.
part of the puzzle. I love people who hold their Bitcoin directly, and I love people who hold the ETF, and they can both exist, both get what they need out of Bitcoin, and it's for the betterment of the movement in general.
Yeah, for sure. I agreed. And I sometimes I think as human beings, we're so caught up in our own tunnel vision and bubble, but there's other people in different walks of life. They're not maybe as tech savvy. They may not understand the tech. They got other things going on in their life, but they want to get exposure from an investment standpoint. I tried to think about my parents, right? Like
Yeah.
they wouldn't be able to self custody crypto at all. But an
I think
ETF,
that's
yeah,
totally right. And we've seen that before, right? How many people, their first step was self-custody? Some people, but not everyone. Many people bought on a centralized exchange and then studied Bitcoin more aggressively and eventually removed that crypto from that exchange and now hold it directly. And that story is just going to repeat again.
yeah, absolutely. Now, Matt, the Bitcoin ETFs are live. There's talks of an Ethereum spot ETF. I know it's still very early, right? We want to get Bitcoin up and running, but there's some applications with the SEC. Do you expect a big Ethereum spot ETF to be approved later this year? And is Bitwise in the running? Hi, everyone. Pardon the interruption. I'm Tony Edward, the founder and host of the Thinking Crypto podcast. I have a huge favor to ask you. If you haven't subscribed as yet on YouTube or the podcast platforms, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, hit the notification bell on the YouTube platform, and on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and review. It supports the podcast. It allows me to bring great quality content to you. Thank you for your support, and I'll let you get back to the content.
Great question. We think an Ethereum ETF will happen eventually, but I think it will be challenging to happen in the very near term. We don't currently have a filing, but we are looking at it aggressively. Um, I've been wrong before, but there are more complications with Ethereum than there were with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was hard enough. So I suspect we're going to get there. Will it be this year? I don't know. That's a challenging question. I'd probably take the under at this point, but I want to reserve the right to change my position in the coming weeks as we study it more. So I do think it's more complex than Bitcoin. I think it's challenging. I think we'll get there eventually, whether it's this year or next, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a great point. As you were saying that, I'm thinking of the staking component. I'm thinking of, look, there's still some things up in the air at the SEC. Chair Gensler, for example, did not want to answer that question about Ethereum being a security or not in front of Congress. So there's some uncertainty there. Um, Even though ETH is, for the most part, widely trading as not a security, but it's a little political. It's a little messy with the SEC, but maybe Congress acts and we get clarity and these things can be put behind us.
You got it. That's exactly right. And it's worth noting that all that's changed really since the spot Bitcoin ETF launched is that the cost for people who want to access Bitcoin in a fund has fallen dramatically.
Mm,
And people are no longer forced to go to offshore and unregulated exchanges if they want to access Bitcoin from a financial perspective. That strikes me as a win, right? That seems like two great things for American investors. So I hope we get that for Ethereum as well. But as you mentioned, staking and other factors make it much more complex, and we'll see people pushing on it. I think we'll get there.
Now, I'm going to ask a very controversial question. Maybe it's along the lines of Ethereum, because I heard the guy, the CIO at Valkyrie, talked about this, possibly an XRP ETF as well. I know that's probably even less likely than the Ethereum ETF because of the ongoing litigation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a hard thing to imagine. The reason for it actually is the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. I know this is like hard mental math, but the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF relied on the existence of the regulated Bitcoin futures market.
Mm,
In any ETF for a spot commodity, whether it's gold or platinum or Bitcoin or Ethereum, the SEC wants there to be a regulated futures market that they can monitor.
mm,
That is the case for Bitcoin. It is the case for Ethereum because there's the regulated CME futures market, but there is no regulated XRP market that I'm aware of. And that makes it sort of exponentially more difficult to get an ETF. So it's safe legally, I would say, from a security perspective, because of the lawsuit. At least that would be a dominant reason, but it doesn't have that regulated futures market, and that makes it not impossible, but really tough.
mm. Yeah, agreed. There's just a lot of complications there. Now, I wanted to ask you about Coinbase because today there was some big news around this. I'm a user of Coinbase. I hold a stock as well. And they are custodying a lot of the ETFs and so forth. What are your thoughts on the SEC versus Coinbase? I don't know if you caught any of the comments from the judge today.
Oh man, I've only caught a few comments through Twitter. I haven't been able to listen to the actual a case yet. Um, so I can't opine on that. I will just say, historically, crypto's done pretty well in court.
Mm,
So the law has sided with crypto more often than not, and I'm hopeful that we'll see that there. That's a big case for crypto to monitor. So I've been busy today, so I haven't been able to keep track, but I look forward to catching up tonight.
for sure. Yeah, there's been a flood of information coming in, so it's hard to keep up. And I think it just wrapped up not too long ago. Um, Now, Matt, I would love to get your thoughts on where you think, not price prediction, but how do you think the market's going to perform this year into 2025? It looks like we are in the start of a macro bull market. The 4-year cycle's playing out, the halving coming up. You have the Fed potentially cutting rates, potentially QE returning. I think that's on the horizon. And it looks like global liquidity is also going to be on the rise. What are your thoughts? Do you think we see higher prices this year, or there's volatility this year and maybe higher prices in 2025?
Yeah, we're very optimistic for this year. So at the start of the year, we put out a forecast that we thought Bitcoin would trade to a new all-time high this year above 80,000. We're sticking with that forecast. There's, of course, no guarantees, not financial advice, and forecasts are inherently uncertain. But as I look at the market, I see a lot of things you see. I see the ETF driving new demand for Bitcoin. I see the halving reducing new supply by $7 billion annually. I see interest rates coming down. I see geopolitical tensions rising. I see a lot of uncertainty around elections.
Mhm.
I see liquidity probably coming back into the global macro market. And I see Bitcoin making progress outside of that, whether it's from a security budget perspective or applications that people are building in and around Bitcoin, whether it's Lightspark or Lightning or other things. That's a lot of positives. It's not a guarantee, but it's it's uh, it's a lot of positive tailwinds stacking up behind Bitcoin, and it makes me very optimistic for this year and for 2025.
For sure. Final question here. Obviously the Bitcoin, your ETF is the top of mind thing. You guys are going to be spending a lot of time doing that. Um, is there anything else on your roadmap for 2024?
Yeah, we remain really excited about our core product, the Bitwise 10 Crypto Index Fund. We think there's a lot of value in diversification. I love the pillows behind your right shoulder. It looks like my fund. Um, and we're really excited to put energy behind that. We have another 18 products that we're excited about, and we're certainly looking at other things you can do in the ETF ecosystem. So expect to see more from us on that front. Look, you're going to see a flurry of financial products, some from crypto experts, some from people new to the industry, and those will all give people great choices in this market. We'll certainly be one of them that's looking to innovate.
Matt, always great stuff. I love what Bitwise is doing. Congrats again on the ETF launch. And once again, I love the ad. Fingers crossed, I see you guys at the Super Bowl or whatever it may be. That would be cool. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.